Hello again, boys and girls. Mr. Flaherty back with another lesson for you guys. I'm going to introduce you to decimals today. It's a really important idea for fifth grade. I know I talk a lot about in fourth grade. I've been talking with a lot of parents and my students this week or the last couple weeks. All the stuff we're doing is really to get you ready now for fifth grade. I will tell you, I taught fifth grade for almost 10 years, and it starts with decimals. So, really, decimals are the first thing you're going to do next year in fifth grade. So it's very important you get a good solid base or understanding now about how they work. All right, so a couple of quick things that are kind of related to the fractions that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, really for the last month. All right, we have our same kind of place value chart. You notice over here we have hundreds, like $100. We have a tens place, which is like a $10 bill, and a ones place, which is like a $1 bill. In between, there's this other part, and I talked about it a little last week. We say and here. This is either where there's the decimal point or there's a little space before the fraction starts. All right? Then we have our tenths. And again, I talked about it last week. You can almost say it like a snake. Okay? And then hundredths. That means that right now they're less than one. It's one out of the 10 pieces that it would take to make a whole. Or it's the one out of the 100 pieces it would take to make one whole. Again, I think of these like dimes and pennies. Okay? So we have our number here, and we actually read all these the same way. We have 4. This is kind of the fraction version. We don't say 4 and 3/10 plus 200ths. You can. That's called the expanded form, but normally we would just clump those together. And we would say 4, again, in the middle you say and, 4 and 32 hundredths. Okay? As a decimal, we actually say that the exact same way. When we get to the decimal point, which is a little dot there, almost like the period in the middle of the number, we call that a decimal point. We also say the word and. We read that as 4 and 32 hundredths. Both here and here, that word and helps you to kind of separate out the regular whole numbers from our sort of decimal or fraction pieces. Again, I have the word form of that here as well. We have just the regular number 4. Again, when I'm doing it backwards, when I see the word and, I know that's either my decimal point or where the fraction starts. And then again, I have the number 32 because that's the number. Bottom number is 100, means we're in the hundredths place. Right? That's kind of the basic idea about how fractions work. All right, so I wanted to give you kind of another example. Let's say Savannah is cleaning out under her couch or in the couch cushions. She finds 14 dimes. So we have this kind of problem here. She has 14 tenths. And that's what we call an improper fraction. Think about how much money would it be if you actually had 14 dimes? And you start thinking, you say, well, 10 of them I can technically trade in for $1. Right? So let's say that these are my dimes right here. Right? I can't show you 14 because I don't have that many at the moment. Again, here's sort of 10 of them. Let's say all of a sudden first she finds 4 under one couch cushion. She finds 3 under another, 2 under another. At that point, you can actually go to any store or the bank or whatever, and you can trade that in for one whole dollar, 10 tenths. Okay? And then in Savannah's problem, there would still be 4 tenths left over. Right? She had 14. We traded 10 for a whole dollar. There are still those 4 dimes that are left over. So in math, we would call that 1, again, and then the decimal point, and then 4 over here. We would say she has 1 and 4 tenths. Again, technically, when we think about actual money, we usually also add this 0 in here. With decimals, you can add zeros after that number forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and it would not get any larger or smaller. It's just equivalent. Okay, which is why, again, you don't say if you had that money, we call that $1.40. Again, if we're just talking about decimals or fractions, then we can leave that 0 off. Okay? Does it make an easier way to talk about that? Now, if we're just reading regular decimals, again, I always think of those, or I try to convert them if I can in my head to something like a fraction. Okay? If I have just the decimal point and then 9, right? This means, again, how much would that be in a fraction? You're just taking the number and then what place it's in. It's the number 9, and it's in the tenths place. Again, I would call that 9 over 10, or 9 tenths. Okay, here I have the number 7. What place is it in? Okay, there's a 0 in the tenths, and then the 7 is in the hundredths place. So again, fraction-wise, I would call that 7 over 100. And again, I figured you were probably asking yourself, well, what happens if there's a number in both spots? So what I have here, I have the decimal point, and then a 4 and a 3. Well, you really want to go to where your decimal ends. What place is the 3 in? That's right. Again, I'm doing that Dora the Explorer thing again. It's in the hundredths place. And I have 43 out of 100. That's really what 43 cents means. Again, you can get there by any number of ways with quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies and whatever. But in the end, I have 43 of the pieces needed to make 100. Now let's do that same thinking, but in the other direction. Now we're going to start with the fraction and work our way back to the decimal. Right? If I have 4 tenths, well, it's really telling me, again, what number to put where. It's saying take the number 4 and put it in the tenths place, which is over here. Again, in our tenths place, that 4 is right next to or right after the decimal point. One thing I kind of think about, it's a little trick. The number 10 has 1 0 in it, and the 4 is 1 spot after the decimal point. Because here's where that changes. Now we have 6 hundredths. They want us to take the number 6, they want us to put it in that hundredth spot. Again, if I just do some simple counting here, I have 2 zeros. That means my number needs to end 2 spots over. Here, 1 0, 4 tenths, I just needed 1 spot. My 6 is going to go way over here. Okay? And I talked a little bit ago about, again, zeros after the 6 really don't change it, but in between the decimal point and the 6 do. So I have to put that 0 in between. And then again, or I'll even make this one down here a mixed number. Okay? 4 and 35 hundredths. Let's make it even harder. 214 and 35 hundredths. Again, I'm telling you where each number needs to go. We need to have a 2 in just the regular hundredths place, which is over here. We need to have a 1 in the regular tens place. It's like $200 bills, one $10 bill, and then 4. Oh, I'll do it underneath. 214. And then again, we need to have 35 2 spots after the decimal. So just like I talked about up there. I need 2 spaces after that decimal point. And then 35, which is going to go just where it seems like it would. The 3 is going to go here, and the 5 is going to go there. Okay, like I said, decimals can be a little confusing. Once you see it, though, you're like, oh, that's really easy. It's all about the number 10 or 100. Okay? And like I said, this will really be where 5th grade starts. So it'll be very important that you get these basic ideas. I also did kind of a screenshot video that I'm going to try to clip onto the end of this